Hey everybody, welcome back to 5 and 25. This is episode 16, Luke chapter 23. Now when we left off our last episode, Jesus was in a trial. That trial is continuing in Luke chapter 23. We have some more details about it. Here's what will help you to understand this chapter a little bit more. If you understand there's kind of two groups of people happening that are living in Jerusalem, interacting. Now there's the Jewish people, like the crowd yelling, "Crucify him," King Herod and the chief priests. And then there's a Roman official named Pilate. And Rome, it was during the Roman Empire, and Rome ruled this area. And the Jewish people were allowed to do their thing, but they had to get permission for certain things, like killing someone and giving them the death penalty. And that's what they're trying to get from Pilate, because they want Jesus crucified. Now, the crucifixion and the cross, it's a brutal death. And it's not meant to be a quick death. It's meant to be a suffering death. And they're going to nail Jesus' hands and feet to the cross, and they're just going to leave him up there to suffer. Now, Jesus knew that this was coming. Remember from our last episode, he knew these things were going to happen. He could have stopped it. He didn't. And not only did he not stop it, but I'm amazed at some of the things that he said on there. If you'll notice, there's a passage in there where he's looking at the people who have crucified him, and he says, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." And even while he's being crucified, and even as he's looking at his enemies, those who wanted him dead, he is asking for their forgiveness. I find that amazing. The second thing is he makes a comment to one of the thieves. There's two thieves that are crucified next to him, and one of them's kind of against him and mocking him, and the other one turns to him though and basically humbly says, "Hey, I've done wrong. I know you haven't. Will you remember me when you enter into your kingdom?" And Jesus turns to this man and he says, "Today you'll be with me in paradise." And I find that statement encouraging and hopeful. Here's a man who's obviously not lived well, not followed the Lord, and yet even probably hours, just a few hours or less before he dies, he turns to God, and Jesus says, "You're going to be with me in paradise," which is, hey, you're going to be with me in heaven. And so I find that super encouraging. There's also one verse, it's in verse 45, and there isn't much detail about it, but it's interesting too, because in verse 45 it talks about this veil or this curtain that's being torn in two. Right as Jesus dies, there's a place in the temple, which is where the Jewish people would worship, and there was this inner room called the Holy of Holies, and only the high priest could go into that inner room. And there was this big thick curtain that separated the Holy of Holies from where everybody else would worship. And right as Jesus dies, this curtain is torn in two, it's symbolically saying direct access to the most intimate place of God is now available for everyone, not just the high priest. So I love that passage too, and what it symbolizes as well. Now, as we close out the chapter, Jesus is being buried, and some women are preparing spices. Now, they're going to wait on the Sabbath day, so they're going to rest the next day. But the following day, on the third day, they're going to go to the tomb and take spices there to help further prepare Jesus' body. And if you don't know what happens in this story, you're going to be shocked to see what happens in episode 17. So I'll see you there. God bless.